Out of
Please.
100 people, 4 will get the message.
Guest today on GoldCore TV says there is nowhere to turn other than hard commodities, so bad are the alternatives. Ed Steer from the Gold and Silver Digest joins us to discuss the state of play right now and how vital it is that we turn to gold and silver to protect ourselves. Dave Russell's conversation with Ed serves as a reminder that those who currently do own gold and silver are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the number of people who are going to be looking to ensure their savings when the proverbial really does hit the fan. It is so important that more people realise that there are other options to owning a few stocks, shares and plain old cash. A bit of gold and silver can go a long way. If you enjoy the interview, then please let us know in the comments below. And don't forget, we always welcome a tweet, a like and a share. But for now, please enjoy Dave Russell's conversation with Ed Steer.
Ed Steer, welcome back to GoldCore TV.
Well, thank you very much for having me on, Dave. I appreciate it.
Now, I wanted to just start by asking you, what concerns you the most about the current situation in global financial markets?
Oh, well, I could go on for this for the rest of the day, but, you have to take a look at the macro picture before you can take a look at the micro picture. The macro picture is started in August of '71 when Richard Nixon ripped the world off the vestiges of what was called the gold exchange standard at the time. And since then, we've been living in a fiat currency world. And, we've had many occasions over the last, say, 40 years where, when things came unglued, that the only way it was saved is through the large S of the world central banks, principally the Federal Reserve. We had the crash of '87, then we had the one in '99 with long-term capital management and Russian bonds. Then we had the 2007, 2009 financial crisis. And then we had the repo market blow up in September of 2019, I believe. Every time the Federal Reserve rushed in with more and more money. All they've done is perpetuate this huge everything bubble, as everybody calls it. And what's happened is that the world is swimming in an ocean of fiat currency, and I don't care whether it's the Japanese yen or the Chinese yuan or US dollar or the British pound or the euro. It doesn't make any difference. There is just an ocean of money out there that's basically worth only what you believe you think it's worth. And with this thing with the Ukraine that's happened just recently, and with the leaders of the European Union deciding to dig in their heels regardless of how it was going to affect their their citizens, they've made the decision that Russia has to be beaten into the ground, and at the expense of all their citizens. And now things have gone absolutely totally out of control with energy prices, whether they be oil, gas or electricity, have just gone completely out of control. And there's no question about it that this money printing is going to be the end of us. And we're seeing it show up in spades where everything is spiking in Europe. And it's only a matter of time. I'm watching the British pound fall. I'm watching the Japanese yen fall, the euro fall. And it's just a matter of time before we go from the inflation that we have today, which is anywhere between, say, 9 and 15%, to inflation that would make Venezuela and Zimbabwe look pale in comparison. We're going to have a complete meltdown in all the world's currencies before this is over. And as we talked about before we got on the air, that's part of the plan of the World Economic Forum and the New World Order. They want to basically destroy the economic and financial system that we have today.
So do you think that we are going to see situations where we're going to have a Weimar Republic type of inflation? I know there's been a new Prime Minister in the UK, and one of the first things that they've been discussing over there is caps for domestic energy bills, and with effectively the difference between that and the wholesale cost of those being made up by effectively printing money, issuing debt to pay for that. That obviously naturally is money printing with a view to, not with a view to, but with the effect of adding to this already astronomical fiat currency problem that we have, and further fueling inflation. So how bad do you think that it could get inflation-wise?
Well, Weimar, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, Argentina, you take your pick. Basically, what we're seeing now is debasement of world currencies. And your new prime minister, whatever her name is just adding to that, as to all these bailout programs that Germany and Austria and Finland and all these other countries are coming up with to save their citizens. And all they're doing is making the fiat currency system worse. And as you know, everywhere and anywhere, inflation is a monetary phenomena from one end to the other. So this is just another brick in the wall as we slide further and further down the slippery slope into hyperinflation at some point.
These sanctions that have been leveled against Russia have really been a kind of a shoot yourself in the foot policy from the West, haven't they?
Well, they certainly have. And, you know, this has been a plan of NATO and the United States ever since the end of World War II, where the ultimate aim was to bring down the Soviet Union. Of course, at that time, it was a communist nation. And they had all kinds of leaders from Khrushchev to Brezhnev to whoever you want to say. You know, and I lived through most of that because I was born in 1948. Their aim was the total, you know, the destruction of the Soviet Union and to take over by America, or by, you know, let's call the Western elite. That was the plan. And then, of course, Putin came along and ruined everything when the Soviet Union fell. He's a real nationalist, and good for him. I mean, he's out looking out for his people and his country, which is what every leader should be doing, but he's the only one that seems to be doing it now. And the United States, you know, they still pushes on with their agenda to topple them. And they had the opportunity. All they had to do, as most people know, is to, you know, make sure that the Ukraine didn't belong to NATO and that there would be no military troops or military buildup in the Ukraine. And this would have all been settled and everything would be copacetic. Right now, everything would be fine. But they made a conscious decision not to do that. They said, if we're going to get Russia this way, and at the same time, we're going to start our trip down this new world order, and the people of the world, especially the people in Europe and the UK, are seeing what that price is. And what I've seen on the stories this morning is that the people in Europe are in outright rebellion about it, and it's going to get far worse, and they're absolutely right to be out in the streets because it's their leaders doing it to them without any regard to their citizens.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a situation where the wholesale price of energy is up over 2,000%. Now, the immediate effect on that on the individual is much higher energy bills, which then shrinks down their ability to spend money on anything else effectively. But ultimately, that's incredibly recessionary, and even has the potential to bring on a depression for Europe. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Well, Europe's been in a recession for quite some time, and this, as far as I'm concerned, has just tipped them over the edge. I mean, there's industry shutting down, especially the metallurgical industries like aluminum smelting and steel smelting. They're already closing some of their refineries down because, you know, they just can't afford the electricity costs considering what the price of steel or aluminum is. And there's no question about it. Not only are we heading for a recession, we're heading for a depression because at some point, we're going to see a meltdown in the bond market, and when that happens, the stock markets are melting down. Will melt down at the same time. You know, we're headed for a depression of biblical proportions at some point in time, and like I said, we're just on the slippery slope of that right now.
One of our recent videos there was titled "The Floor is Lava" after the kids' game, where when somebody shouts "the floor is lava," everybody has to jump and try and find a safe place off the floor. When you apply that to financial markets, there's very few safe places left.
No, there are absolutely none. The only safe places left right now are in hard commodities. I don't care what it is. When when the large institutions start selling their bonds and getting out of the currencies, there's only one place left for it to go, and that's in commodities. From I don't care whether you're talking sugar at one end or uranium at the other end. That's where the money is going to go. And of course, the largest amount of money is going to go into the monetary metals, which are gold and silver. And that's been going on for many years now. If you look at how much silver and gold there is in the various mutual funds and ETFs all over the world, they've gone down recently in the last 3 or 4 or 6 months or whatever, but they're at highs we have never seen since these ETFs and mutual funds were founded like 10, 15, 20 years ago. So the smart money has got a lot of money parked in there already. And it's only when the hoi polloi, the average person in the street, runs to buy some, they'll find there won't be any. But in the end, when paper dies, commodities boom, and the kings and queen will be gold and silver when that happens.
And central banks as well, they've also been stocking up on gold in particular over the last number of years. Plenty of central banks that haven't been buyers of gold in the past have been buyers of gold this year and last. One of note is actually the Irish Central Bank. They made the first purchase of gold in, I don't know, over 20 odd years. And there seems to be a kind of concerted effort between central banks to increase their gold holdings. Do you think that that's significant, or do you think that that signifies or identifies something?
Yeah, it certainly does. It means that they're slowly sliding towards the exit and trying and hoping that nobody will notice. And I did note that story about Ireland's gold. It wasn't a lot, but it was, like you said, something they hadn't done in 20 years. But there's lots of other central banks out there. They're not shy about it at all. Russia is one. India is another. Poland, Austria, the Czech Republic, you name it. Every one of these countries out there has been buying 5, 10, 15, 20 tons, either a month or a year, and slowly but surely they're building up their gold reserves. They know exactly what's happening because they're the ones that caused the problems that we have in the first place. And if they're doing it, everybody else should be doing it too.
And if we see this movement out of bonds and this significant sell-off in stock markets as you're predicting, that has massive, as we talked about, the potential for a recession or depression, but it also has massive societal implications as well, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. It's going to be, it's going to get ugly out there. You can already, I saw the story I had in my column this morning about, was it in the Czech Republic? They had 70,000 people marching in the streets. It was absolutely amazing to watch, and that's just the start of it. You know, there's been other countries where you've seen that too, and it's only a matter of time before this really takes fire all across Europe, and then it's really going to be ugly. And like you said, it's societal as well. You know, over here in North America, here in Canada, it's not too bad, but in the United States, things are just going sideways at an ever increasing rate. You know, I was born in Canada and raised here, and you know, the United States has always been the land of the free and the home of the brave. But you know, since we went off the gold standard, I've seen the country slide slowly into the depths. And as I pointed out earlier, the deep state New World Order crowd, one of their objectives has been around for a very long time, over 100 years, is the destruction of the American Republic. And that's happening right now as we watch it in real time, especially after watching Biden's speech, was it last week? That was as ugly as it gets. And it reminds me of the speech out of V for Vendetta, which a movie I'm sure you're familiar with. But it's not just the United States, it's the entire world. And unless you're living out in some small town someplace, an urban environment is not the place you would want to be living when this thing finally does go south.
Now, you and I live and breathe this every day, so we are hypersensitive to it, and you've been warning about this for a while now. Do you think that the average person understands the challenges that are ahead, or the depth of the challenges that are ahead?
Unfortunately, no, they do not. And I can speak that from experience, just talking to my neighbors around here. They have no idea what's going on out there, none whatsoever. And that's deliberate. I mean, the media, which is owned by the deep state, whether it be the press or the TV or radio, whatever it is, they control the narrative. And if they don't want you to know about it, you never see it in print or on TV. Instead, they put out whatever stories they want you to hear. So this has been going on for a very, very, very long time. They control the narrative, and they're going to continue to control the narrative. It's incredible what the world has sunk to in the last 50 years as the deep state closes its grip on society itself.
And what do you think the tipping point is going to be for most people? Is it the onset of high energy prices and these bills landing in the letterbox, high inflation, or at what point do you think that you get that groundswell that would where we get to that point where they say enough is enough?
Well, we're starting to see it already. This is what the New World Order and Deep State crowd appear to be doing, and I'm just speculating here, is they're inching us to where they drop a catastrophe on us and they see how we react and how it goes, and then they drop another one on us to see how it goes. And it's a series of small steps that they get people more and more crowded into thinking a certain way until the people become desperate. And you're seeing signs of that already in not only in the UK, but also in Europe as well. And it's not going to take much more before the people are, in general, are going to rise up. But it's going to be a series of steps unless they decide to pull one big thing all at once. But sooner or later, the people are going to rise up because they've got nothing to lose. They're just going to go out there and they're going to go to Brussels and they're going to burn the place to the ground. And the political leaders of whatever countries that have been opposed to have not been helping their citizens are going to be in dire straits. So there's going to be bedlam, looting. I don't even want to think about it. It's going to be dystopian to the nth degree, I'm afraid, at some point.
Now, your suggestion, and something obviously that we would agree with, is that owning precious metals is something that will protect you from these, and let's call them challenges to come.
And also something else would help you is if you had, I hate to bring it up, but you have some way to protect yourself and your family in the form of, well, I won't get into what it is, but there are certainly other items in the world that you need to protect yourself and your family when somebody could trying to bust down your door, if you know what I mean.
And somebody's trying to take it off you, indeed.
Yeah.
Now, what we've seen over the last couple of years is this money printing problem getting worse. We're seeing inflation has taken off. We've seen an increase in geopolitical tension around the world. It's not just on the continent of Europe, but geopolitical tension around the world. This should be a perfect storm for gold and silver. And yet, gold and silver have not been performing as you would expect in that environment. Why do you believe that is?
Okay, I'll just touch on your previous comment first. It said the reason that the things are getting worse and worse in the geopolitical arena is because the West is pushing them. They're pushing China, they're pushing North Korea, they're pushing Russia, Iran, anybody that won't buy into their narrative and won't be swayed by them and won't be bought off by them is being demonized by the West. So that's why the situation is as bad as it is today. That's why we are where we are today. And as far as precious metals, well, the fact of the matter is that since we went off the gold standard back in 1971, and we've had basically unlimited money printing since, what the U.S. Treasury Department, Bank of International Settlements, Bank of England, all the major central banks and banking institutions have had to do is they have had to basically suppress precious metal prices. I call them the big six commodities: gold, silver, platinum, palladium, copper, and West Texas Intermediate crude. They've had to keep those prices pretty much under wraps. And they've done that in the COMEX futures market, where the price of all these commodities are set. And this has been going on since 1971 or 1973 or whenever they started this. And it's been going on to the present day. And it's more than obvious. You just take a look at any gold chart, the price will be way up and then an hour later it'll be way down. This has been going on, this wash, rinse, and repeat cycle that the banks go through in controlling the prices of everything has been going on for almost 3 generations now. And it's reached the point now where they desperately want to get out of it. And the banking system in general, it's mostly U.S. banks. I mean, Barclays is involved, Standard Charter's involved. I'm sure the French bank PNB Paribas is involved, maybe a German bank, but they're mostly U.S. banks, Citigroup, HSBC. Well, HSBC is a British bank, excuse me. Citigroup, Bank America, the big New York banking firms have been short these metals by just millions, hundreds of millions of ounces for such a long time now that they're desperately trying to get out of these short positions. This has been going on for, I don't know, for a couple of years now. JP Morgan got back out in 2020. Now the remaining banks are trying to get out now, and that's where we're seeing the gyrations we have and why prices have been so depressed over this period of time. And when it really got bad was, remember when the LME nickel scandal broke out?
Yes.
Where nickel all of a sudden, blew up the LME, and that was the day. And I follow silver analyst Ted Butler's work very closely.
Mm.
That was the day when the prices of everything peaked: gold, silver, platinum, palladium, Westex, everything. And from that point on, it's been downhill. I think it was the first week of March or something like that. It blew up. And ever since that point where the banks looked around and said, my goodness sakes alive, if this happened in nickel, what is it going to do in silver, which is the most heavily shorted metal on planet Earth, gold, platinum, whatever else they're short in, they realized that they could get hung out to dry, just like JP Morgan got hung out to dry on this nickel thing. So they've been scrambling to get out of these short positions, and the only way they can do that is to drive prices lower to force other people to sell to them, sell long positions so they can cover. That's why we're in the state we're in today, with silver at, what is it right now? I'm looking at my screen. Gold's at 17.15, which is ridiculous. It should be five or more times that high. It should be around $10,000 an ounce. And silver is over 18, 1841. It should be, conservatively, it should be 10 times that price.
Okay.
And once these banks have managed to cover as many short positions as they can, they will be able to stand back and let these prices rise. And Dave, I'll tell you, when they do decide to stand back, it's going to be a sight to behold, because prices are going to absolutely go to the moon. And that's why you haven't seen prices do what they should have done for the last, 50 years.
Mm.
They've been very, very carefully controlled. But there's an end game coming. And, like you said, we both watch this market very carefully. And through my work, through my consultations with Ted, who's the real authority on the precious metals, you can see that their end game is coming very, very soon. And if you're not in on the day that it decides to erupt, you're going to be all the way out. So my advice to people right now is to please invest in precious metals or commodities sooner rather than later. Better to be in 3 days early than 3 days late.
And you say soon. What does that actually translate into? I know it's not something that you can call to the day or to the time, but do you feel that is weeks, months, a year? What are we talking about?
If the banks put their hands in their pockets right now, it would be over before the end of trading tomorrow.
Mm.
One thing that people don't realize, okay, is in the COMEX futures market, okay, there are no daily limits to how high the price can go. There are in other commodities like copper or crude oil or natural gas or cocoa or rubber or wheat or whatever commodity it is. Okay,
Mm.
once the price goes up,
there's a limit up. Isn't that what it's called?
There's a limit up. Thank you very much. That's much nicer. It's a limit up, and then trading stops. That doesn't exist in gold and silver, and it can rise by any amount in one day. And the reason that is, and Ted told me this like 15 years ago. He says about 25 or 30 years ago, the CME group or the COMEX changed the rule on that, but didn't tell anybody about it. And he found out about it. I don't know how he found out about it. You can go there right on the website, the COMEX website. There are no limits on gold and silver.
Okay.
So when they want these things to fly, they can fly. It can be over. Like I said, when it does come, it's going to come quickly.
Yes.
And you better be in 3 days or 3 weeks or I expect this to be over before the end of the year, to tell you the truth.
Okay.
On what day, what week, what month, I don't know, but I can tell you that if you aren't in before it, you're going to get left all the way out.
And do you think that this is an organized unwinding of positions, or do you think that they'll be forced to by events?
You just don't know what the banks are going to do once they get down to cover as many shorts as they can. They'll have short positions left. My speculation is that There'll be, if there's any losses that are threatening to the existence, too big to fail, that the Exchange Stabilization Fund, Bank for International Settlements will come in and bail these firms out, or maybe the Fed will. But institutions like Citigroup and Bank of America and HSBC and Standard Chartered, British banks, these banks are way too big to fail, and they'll get bailed out for sure. But as for everybody else, they're going to be forced to cover it in a very illiquid market. And my mind boggles when I think about what silver price is going to end up on the clearing event that's coming. But I can tell you it's going to be a very large 3-digit number.
And just before we wrap up here, maybe you can tell everybody where it is so they can find out more about what it is that you do.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I've been writing precious metals commentary on the internet now for, I don't know, it's been so long I've lost track, 15, 18 years, something like that. I wrote the daily commentary on precious metals for Doug Casey up until 2000, and I can't even remember what year it is, 7 minus 22, up to 2015. And then I went on my own in 2015, and I have a daily newsletter 5 days a week. And just Google my name, Ed Steer, S-T-E-E-R, Ed Steer Gold or Ed Steer Silver, and my website will pop up. There's a link on there's a tab on my website that says free or a free copy, or not a free copy, but a sample copy of my column. And people can click on that and they can see what they're getting for the money. And it's only $100 US per year for about 260 plus columns. So, I've been told by many people I should be charging more, and I know that, but I don't want to leave anybody out. So that's what the price is.
Super. Well, what I'm going to do, Ed, is I'm going to put a link to your website in the show notes and description below this video. So anybody that wants to, and I highly recommend that you do, click on that link, sign up for the free sample of Ed's newsletter, and also sign up for the annual subscription as well. Highly recommend that. But for now, Ed Steer, thanks for joining us on GoldCore TV again.
Entirely my pleasure, and thanks for having me on, Dave.
Our thanks to Ed for joining us on GoldCore TV. Don't forget, you can find out how to read more of his work in the details below this video. If listening to Dave's conversation with Ed has got you thinking that perhaps you too would like to start to ensure your savings and livelihood, or even just add more gold and silver to your current holdings, then please get in touch with us at goldcore.com. Our colleagues are a friendly bunch and always happy to answer any questions you may have. Anything from precious metals to investing in precious metals. If you enjoyed this interview, then please click the subscribe button below and let us know in the comments. And once you've subscribed, then why not enjoy the wealth of other interviews that we have to offer, including those in the M3 Report, our flagship show on metals, markets and money. Thanks for watching, and we will see you next time.
Want to know how to be a successful investor? The answer is stay with what you know. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to TV people, internet people. Just stay with what you know. If I told you you can only have 20 investments in your life, you would be very careful. You wouldn't be jumping in and out listening to hot tips every day, every month. You would stay with what you know, and you would become a successful investor. Everybody watching this knows a lot about something, whether it's fashion or cars or sports or something. When you see something that you know is going to be successful and exciting, don't just say, oh, that's going to be great. Don't tell all you. Then you go and you do your research and you figure out how to, and if you should invest and how to invest, and then you invest. You will know it long before I will, or long before other people in the investment community. You will also know when to sell, because you will know when something's going to change again. Nobody likes to hear it. Everybody wants a hot tip. Everybody wants to be rich this month. In those days, we did nothing but focus and concentrate and dig deep and dig deep and dig deep.
Hi, look, Greg.